The staff member assisting her asked if she planned to live in the dorms or find her own apartment. Unenthusiastic about the chaotic international student housing, Chloe, who had arranged for a small apartment near campus before arriving, grabbed her suitcase and headed straight there. Reaching her destination, she eyed the flight of stairs ahead and attempted to lift her heavy suitcase, letting out a long sigh. She was just considering whether to pay someone for help when a clear, friendly male voice sounded beside her. Turning, she saw a stunningly handsome young man with blonde hair and blue eyes asking in English if she needed assistance. She nodded gratefully, and the guy effortlessly picked up her luggage and carried it upstairs, making friendly small talk along the way. By the time they reached her apartment door, they had just finished introductions. Chloe bowed slightly, expressing her thanks. He, however, showed her his slightly reddened palm and joked good-naturedly, "I helped you out. A simple thank you might not be enough, don't you think? If it's not too forward, could I get your number?" The request took Chloe by surprise for a second, but she quickly recovered. She fumbled through her wallet but couldn't find a business card. "I'm sorry," she said, apologetically. The handsome guy just smiled. "No problem." He produced a pen from seemingly nowhere and held out the back of his hand. "How about you write it right here?" Chloe hesitated for a few seconds before taking the pen. On his slender, well-shaped hand, she carefully wrote down a string of digits. After moving into her new apartment, Chloe spent several busy days getting everything arranged. That evening, she received a notification that all the international exchange students in her cohort had completed registration and a welcome assembly would be held in the auditorium the next day. She noted the time and set out early the next morning. Despite having explored the campus in her free time over the past few days, the university was massive and the buildings looked too similar. She got hopelessly lost. Just as she was starting to panic about being late, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. After a moment's thought, she answered. A vaguely familiar voice spoke in her ear, but she couldn't quite place it. While she was still puzzling over it, someone tapped her shoulder from behind. Chloe turned and found the handsome guy from the other day, Edward grinning at her, his phone still held to his ear. She finally realized it was his number, and her face lit up with recognition and surprise. They shared a quick high five. Edward asked what she was staring so intently at, and she honestly explained her predicament. Hearing she was headed to the auditorium, he immediately said he was going there too and offered to guide her. Trusting him, Chloe followed as they navigated the maze-like campus, chatting and laughing easily. After about 15 minutes of winding paths, Edward pointed to a building ahead, declaring they'd arrived. Pulling out her phone to check the campus map a senior had sent her, she confirmed it was the right place and thanked him with a wave. The welcome assembly dragged on for 2 hours. By the time Chloe emerged from the auditorium, her back was aching. She was pondering where to get lunch when a figure suddenly popped up in front of her. It was Edward, smiling warmly and asking about her lunch plans. Seeing her look of uncertainty, he perceptively suggested a restaurant and invited her to join him. Chloe agreed, and he led the way out of the university. When they arrived at the restaurant entrance, she realized it was a Chinese place. A flicker of confusion crossed her eyes. "You're taking me for Chinese food? Do you enjoy it? I heard most people from here aren't really used to our cuisine." "I was hoping to ensure you have a pleasant meal experience today," he explained smoothly. "And I've been wanting to try authentic Chinese food, so I chose this place." Touched by his thoughtfulness and not wanting to seem ungrateful, Chloe smiled. "Let's eat here then. Consider me your local guide for this meal. It's my treat. I hope I can give you a great first impression of Chinese food." They entered the restaurant, found a table, and sat down. Chloe took the menu and, seeing Edward's genuine interest in the dishes, patiently explained each one he pointed to. She ended up ordering 5 different dishes. Thanks to her lively yet polite demeanor, the lunch was genuinely enjoyable. They chatted about cultural differences between East and West and shared funny recent happenings around campus, quickly growing more comfortable with each other. After the meal, Edward even walked her back to her apartment. As they said goodbye, he wore a slightly reluctant expression and politely asked, "This weekend, would you do me the honor of joining me for afternoon tea?" The weekend brought beautifully clear weather. Chloe happily agreed to the date and met Edward at a garden cafe. They were chatting leisurely when a flock of white pigeons flew near the lake. A single feather drifted down and landed right in Chloe's hair. Edward noticed, chuckled, and stood up to gently pluck it out for her. They were standing quite close, and from a distance, it looked rather intimate. Chloe looked up, her eyes smiling. "Thanks," she began, but her voice cut off as her gaze flickered to the left and instantly froze. The man standing at the entrance, his forehead bandaged, his face haggard and pale. He looked exactly like Nicholas. Before she could get a closer look, the man was already storming over. His bloodshot eyes swept over the table of delicate pastries before locking onto Edward. "Who is he?" Nicholas demanded, his voice tight with anger. Hearing that familiar voice confirmed it was him. While she didn't know how he'd found her here, his appearance wasn't entirely unexpected. She'd known he'd eventually track her to Italy. In his eyes, she was prey he'd easily captured, and he would never simply let her slip away. She had long been prepared for this reunion, which was why she met his aggressive attitude with utter calm. "A friend," she stated coolly. "What kind of friend?" he pressed, the words practically gritted out between his teeth. "A boyfriend?" He couldn't believe it. He'd dragged his injured body across continents, desperate to explain everything and come clean, only to find her on a date with another man. She'd only been abroad for a few days. Had she already moved on? What about liking him for 2 years? What about not giving up after 99 rejections? What about their understanding that they'd be together on the 100th? Why was she going back on her word? The realization made the fury in his chest burn hotter. "Have you forgotten?" he began, his tone pained. Chloe cut him off, not letting him dredge up the past. "Having chased after you isn't exactly a glorious chapter of my life. So what if I've forgotten it? Shouldn't I? Let's be real, aside from your face, you don't have much else going for you. I've lost interest. I felt like a change of pace. Do I need your permission for that?" Her words left him speechless. He stared at her in disbelief, his eyes full of confusion and hurt. "Chloe, what have you been through these past few days? We had an agreement." "My days have been great," she interrupted breezily. "Eating well, sleeping well, and thanks to you, I even had time for a little vacation. It's your sudden appearance that's putting a damper on my mood now. If you understand what I'm saying, please do us all a favor and leave this cafe. Frankly, you're interrupting my meal with a very handsome man." Her tone was light, casual, as if stating an obvious fact. This cold, dismissive attitude made Nicholas's already poor complexion turn ashen. He finally, fully realized that everything had truly spiraled beyond his control. His emotions boiled over. He grabbed her wrist, his words tumbling out in a frantic, disjointed rush. "I was wrong before. I shouldn't have played with your feelings. I'm sorry, Chloe, please. Just give me one more chance. Please forgive me." In Chloe's eyes, his apology was utterly meaningless. She had been publicly rejected 99 times. Did he really think a simple sorry could erase all that? Wishful thinking. A pipe dream. Seeing his slightly trembling hand, she raised a skeptical eyebrow, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I really don't deserve an apology from the grade school heartthrob. Don't worry. We're strangers from now on. You won't have to worry about me pestering you anymore." Seeing the unwavering resolve in her eyes, Nicholas knew she wasn't bluffing. Panic seized him, and his grip on her wrist tightened instinctively, making her wince. Edward, who hadn't understood their Chinese exchange, had initially assumed they were friends catching up. But seeing the situation deteriorate and Chloe's obvious discomfort, he quickly stood up, intending to intervene and free her arm. To Nicholas, already feeling desperate and unhinged, this move felt like a direct challenge. Without a second thought, he shoved Edward away. Edward stumbled back a few steps, catching himself against the wall. Seeing Chloe trying to pull away from Nicholas's grasp, he charged forward and threw a punch squarely at Nicholas's face. The two men instantly became a tangled, fighting mess. The once peaceful garden corner descended into chaos. Tables and chairs overturned, pastries and china scattered across the floor, a nearby potted plant was knocked over. Patrons, fearing they'd be caught in the crossfire, hurriedly streamed out of the cafe. The owner, watching from the second floor, immediately called the police. Located in the city center, the police arrived quickly. They pulled the two apart, both now sporting injuries and still seething, and took them to the station. The bandage on Nicholas's forehead had been torn off, revealing an angry, gruesome-looking wound that made the officers wince. They initially assumed Edward was bullying an injured man. Edward vehemently defended himself. Nicholas, now also bruised, was no less vocal, insisting Edward had thrown the first punch. They argued back and forth for what felt like ages, the noise level giving the officers a headache, with no clear resolution in sight. Out of options, the officer turned to the third party and only witness, Chloe. "Ma'am," he asked, "could you please describe what happened?" At the question, both men instantly turned, their intense gazes fixed squarely on her. From the moment the fight broke out, Chloe had stepped well aside to avoid getting hurt. She hadn't uttered a single word to try and stop them, simply watching them take their frustrations out. She raised a hand and pointed directly at Nicholas without batting an eye. He pushed him first. Nicholas stood rooted to the spot, stunned, unable to believe she was pinning the blame on him. He stared at her, his voice trembling. "I just gave him a shove, he was the one who threw the first punch." "Chloe, why would you?" He stopped mid-sentence, a sudden, sharp understanding flashing in his mind. He realized why she was doing this. She was paying him back. Making him taste what it felt like to be falsely accused and made a scapegoat. The realization stole the breath from his lungs. He couldn't speak, feeling completely suffocated. The officer, not understanding the Chinese, asked Chloe to translate. She directly clarified their relationship for the record. "I was having a meal with Edward. She gestured to Nicholas, burst in, caused a disturbance, tried to force me to leave with him against my will, and then he pushed someone. That's why they started fighting." Any last shred of hope in Nicholas's heart shattered completely. He opened his mouth, but only a hoarse, weak sound came out. You won't ever take my side again, will you?" Chloe gave him a sidelong glance and a cold, mocking laugh. "I'm an honest person. I only stand on the side of the truth." Still unwilling to give up, Nicholas pressed, "And if he had pushed me first today? Would you have told the truth then?" "Is that even a question?" she retorted, her voice icy. "You and I are nothing to each other. We're not close. Edward is young and a bit sensitive. Of course I'd look out for my friend." With that final remark, Chloe didn't bother waiting to see his reaction. She turned on her heel and walked out. With her statement and the quickly retrieved CCTV footage, the facts were soon established. Nicholas, as a foreigner causing a disturbance, was held for further processing. Chloe waited for Edward to be released, thanked him, and also apologized for the trouble. He waived it. Chloe considered it carefully. While Edward was undoubtedly attractive, the day's events suggested he might be a bit impulsive. She knew Nicholas wouldn't let this go easily, and she didn't want to drag Edward into her drama or make trips to the police station a habit. She could sense he was interested in her, but the new Chloe didn't make decisions based on fleeting emotions anymore. In the end, she politely declined. Nicholas had to pull numerous strings and call in favors to get himself released. He wandered the streets aimlessly, not knowing where to go. Every time he thought about the recent events, it felt like his heart was being held over an open flame. The agony was unbearable. A tidal wave of regret washed over him, drowning him completely. He wished, more than anything, that he could go back to the site of Chloe's 99th confession and just say yes. If he had accepted her and confessed his own feelings then, none of this chain reaction would have happened. She wouldn't have given up on him. They could have been together. But the cold wind and rain of the night shattered that fantasy. Watching the unending drizzle, he finally accepted that things had reached a point of no return. Even so, he refused to give up. He had secretly loved her for 2 years, waited for 2 years. He couldn't let it all end like this. He vowed to do whatever it took to win Chloe back, just like she had pursued him. He would use 100 different gestures to earn just one chance at her forgiveness. Just one. That was all he needed. For the next couple of weeks, Chloe didn't see Nicholas, and her life settled into a pleasant routine. Edward asked her out twice more. After she declined, their connection naturally faded away. She didn't dwell on the brief, almost holiday fling potential of it. She focused on her social life and studies, filling her days productively. Being in a foreign country and knowing her way around a kitchen helped her quickly integrate into the local circle of international students. Just when she was almost starting to forget Nicholas existed, he reappeared as suddenly as he'd vanished. This time, he blocked her path at the university entrance, accompanied by several cars overflowing with roses and balloons. Under the curious stares of everyone around, Chloe was momentarily speechless. Ignoring her obvious discomfort, Nicholas seized the moment to pour his heart out. "Chloe," he declared, "if I pursue you 100 times, will you give me another chance?" If this had happened a few months ago, those words would have reduced Chloe to a puddle of tears. Now, they not only left her completely cold but also sent a shiver of second-hand embarrassment down her spine. How cliché. What cringe-worthy lines. Had she been possessed back then? How could she have ever made such grand, public declarations of love so many times? Looking back, she felt no nostalgia, only a profound sense of cringe. If she could time travel, she would desperately try to talk some sense into her younger, love-struck self, to expose Nicholas's true nature sooner. What a waste, 2 years, over 700 days, thrown away on someone so utterly unworthy. Lost in these thoughts of regret, she didn't even process what the man in front of her was saying now. After waiting endlessly for a response, Nicholas grew increasingly anxious. He fidgeted, looking around, trying to figure out if he'd done something wrong, but he couldn't find any flaw in his grand gesture. He could only look at her, tense and hopeful. Boo. Following her gaze, he realized she was calling out to other people. This treatment, being treated as if he were invisible, sent Nicholas's heart plunging into an ice-cold abyss. His face instantly turned a ghastly shade of pale. He gritted his teeth, forcing the words out, desperate to recapture her attention. "Chloe," he began. But before he could finish, the guy named Ethan walked over. His tone was noticeably familiar. "We're heading out camping. Wanna come, Chloe?" The weather was perfect, she had no plans for the weekend, and a major nuisance was standing right in front of her. Chloe had no reason to refuse. "Sure," she agreed readily. Ethan, seemingly expecting her agreement, reached out to take her bag. Without any protest, she handed it over, smiling as she asked him about the plans for the night. The two of them chatted, not granting Nicholas a single glance, and seamlessly merged with the group of campers. Watching their retreating figures, Nicholas's face went deathly pale. He clenched his fists, his gaze fixed on Ethan filled with bitter resentment and simmering jealousy. Feeling utterly deflated, he followed them at a distance to the outskirts of the city. Separated by a river, he had a clear view of everything happening on the other side. 7 or 8 international students were gathered together, grilling food, chatting, playing games, the picture of a lively, tight-knit group. Unable to join them, he could only watch from afar, and the longer he looked, the more his heart ached. No matter what Chloe did, the guy named Ethan was never more than 10 steps away from her, their proximity and obvious closeness making Nicholas burn with a jealous frustration. He desperately wanted to just march over and take her away. But he knew that if he did, it would only make Chloe angrier. He didn't want to worsen the already frozen state of their relationship, so he couldn't afford to add fuel to the fire. He could only swallow the complex emotions scorch. He endured like this for 6 hours. As the sky slowly darkened, the other side lit a bonfire and the party grew even louder. Perhaps finding the noise a bit overwhelming, Chloe, who seemed less accustomed to the rowdiness, walked alone toward the riverbank for some fresh air. Nicholas seized the opportunity and approached her. "Chloe," he said, stopping her. "There's something I need to say." Chloe had been in a good mood today, but seeing him instantly soured it. "Not interested," she said flatly, turning to leave. Nicholas grew frantic. He grabbed her hand, his eyes pleading. "Just give me a few minutes, please. Chloe, there's something I should have told you a long time ago." Hearing this, Chloe finally looked directly at him, her expression deeply skeptical. "A long time ago? What? Don't tell me it's some nonsense about how you fell in love with me at first sight 2 years ago?" Her voice was thick with derision by the end. Nicholas looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, standing there completely stunned. He never, ever imagined that the secret he thought he'd guarded so carefully would come from her lips. Chloe didn't care about his shock. Her mocking smile only widened. "Nicholas, think about it. If you say those words, do you think anyone would believe you? Would you even believe yourself? Who in the world can hide a crush for 2 years without a single slip-up? Who, to protect their own pride, would publicly reject the person they're supposedly in love with 99 times? Who, in every single difficult or painful situation, would consistently push the person they love to the opposite side? Is that love? Sounds more like pure hatred to me." Listening to her sarcastic tirade, Nicholas's ears rang, his mind a complete blank. He desperately wanted to deny it all, but in the end, he couldn't muster a single word of defense. All that came out were weak, hollow phrases. "That's not true, Chloe. I really do like you. Everyone around me. If I didn't know about it, then what does it matter to me who you liked?" she retorted. "From my perspective, the person you liked from start to finish was Gabriella. Why don't you go find her and pour your heart out? You two are a perfect match. The whole thing just makes me sick." The undisguised disgust on Chloe's face was the final straw that broke Nicholas. His body trembled uncontrollably, but he stubbornly refused to let go of her hand, desperately trying to make her stay. She had no patience left to continue this struggle. She yanked her hand free and turned to walk away. The moment their hands separated, he felt as if he was losing everything. A dull, heavy pain spread through his chest. All the strength left his body in an instant, and he swayed, almost collapsing on the spot. Chloe, an expert at ignoring him by now, walked back to the lively group with light, quick steps, not looking back even once. Chloe thought that after laying everything out so plainly, Nicholas would finally get the message and give up. But she soon realized the man was incapable of listening. Nothing got through to him. For the next few months, whenever she stepped outside, she would inevitably spot him lurking within 20 meters. Every few days, he would show up with some new grand, over-the-top gesture,